But now it's time, so maybe we can start. Are you ready, Joona?
I am ready.
Let's start then. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Seidat webinar about how to create visually attractive presentations. My name is Paulus Perkkiö. I'm CEO and the founder of Seidat, and I'm here together with Joona Taskinen, who is our CEO. Before we jump to the agenda, I really recommend you to follow our social media channels like LinkedIn and Instagram especially. And of course, we have quite a lot of content in YouTube. So those are the channels what I really recommend for you. And of course, you can follow also me and Joona. And we are quite often sharing some ideas, what's coming next and that kind of things, which can be very important for your daily business work. Today, our agenda is on the slide. We start with why do visualizations make your customers buy more? Then we go to more practical topics, how you can do those visually appealing presentations, what kind of tips and tricks we have learned when we have created presentation to ourselves and to our customers. And then in the end of the webinar, I can tell you a little bit more about Seidat. If I shortly start myself, who I am, I'm Paulus, CEO, and I have a visual background. I'm industrial designer as my educational background. I have been building all kind of presentations more than 20 years. So I have done that quite a lot. And because of my educational background and what I have done in my business life means that I have learned quite a lot about this topic. But I have got together with me to this webinar Joona. Joona is the person who does the most presentations in our team at the moment. So could you tell a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course, gladly. My name is Joona, and I worked for Seidat more than 7 years, I think. And I joined to be a project manager, and I've done that for 7 years now and still continuing. And in that role, I've had the chance to help hundreds of our clients with their presentations. And quite typically, they are sales presentations. They can be any other presentation. But I have the experience from all these companies, all these clients, and also helping our own material creation. So that's why I'm here, and I will give you some tips and tricks on what to do and what to avoid when creating your presentations.
Thank you, Joona. Then we may jump to the main topic. I really want to start this with this good example. I don't put this video running, but I think that this is one of the most interesting videos where someone is using really well a presentation. It's the situation when Steve Jobs launched iPhone. It's old, but it's still very good one. So if you haven't seen that launching event and how he was using presentation, when we share the material after this webinar, we will include this slide to that material. So please take a while and check how Steve Jobs used presentation in that one really interesting event. I really believe that you will get some good ideas even you are not selling typically maybe your product or services to this huge audience what he had at that time, millions of people, and it was really big event. But why we are discussing about visual quality of presentations, why it's important? If you think about sales development, how to impact sales results, we have been building here an image, and there is a vertical line from back office to front line. And then there is about horizontal line or vice versa, vertical line from processes to culture. And if you think about where is the biggest opportunity to develop sales results, I must say that my strong opinion is that it's there in the front line of sales when you meet your customers, when you have those negotiations, and where you try to close the deal, when you interact with your customer. And those are the biggest opportunities to get more sales. And I think that presentations are part of that work. It's not only about meetings, it's also proposals, it's meeting memos, intro materials. They all are interaction with you and your customers. And the better materials you have, the better interaction you will get. And how we think about presentations itself, I think it's very important topic to start with, because typically when I start discussing with someone about presentation, they think about PowerPoints, they think about bullet points, and that kind of materials. And I think that it's a little bit strange way to think about presentations, because how I think that presentations are like campfires. They should be they should work like campfire works. I really like the situation when I collect my family, my friends, relatives, whoever, and we go somewhere to have a campfire. We sit around, tell stories, cook some sausage and drink something and have fun. And what happens when people collect themselves around the campfire? Typically, it's all about discussion. I think that presentation, if it's done well, and if you use it well in sales meeting, it means that it should work like campfire. It collects the people around the one topic, what you show on the screen or wall or wherever, and you start discussing, because sales is all about discussion. It's about interaction. So when you have a good presentation, it makes some kind of wow feeling, and it's supporting the salesperson, and it allows you to interact with your customer. And if you think about how to create this kind of campfires, I must say that it's not possible with bullet points. It means that you must have some visuality in that presentation. And I say that the more visual presentation you have, the more you will sell. Why I'm thinking that way? It's all about understanding. It's all about understanding what you are selling. If your buyer can easily understand what you sell, they get ideas how they could develop their business or daily life. It's more eager that they will buy. And why presentations are good in that, and why visuality is important. Based on researches says that if you are following the speech without any slides, without any words, without any visualizations, it means that the person who is following understands or gets about 10% of the message. If you have bullet points together when you speak, it doubles the understanding. But if you can have visual material, it's 8 times higher the level of understanding the message. I think the difference is huge. It's same thing. There is a research which says that it's 400% better learning results when you use visual materials when you are teaching someone. So they are supporting those 2 different researches. They are supporting same kind of feeling that it's important to have visual materials which are supporting the message what you are telling to your customers. And if you think about visuality itself, there are many ways to do it. It's not only images, it can be this kind of background videos which are running when you are explaining something. It maybe makes some kind of wow feeling to that situation, or it can be this kind of 360 images which you can rotate and zoom and use that way. It's also visual way of communicating, and that's something what I'm thinking when I'm telling about visual quality, visual opportunities, not only images. Visuality gives you also really good opportunities for interaction, because when if you have a slides which is full of text, no one can read it when you are speaking, when you are presenting. But when you have mostly visual slides, they can be not only photos, they can be like some kind of graphics, which is telling some kind of process or whatever. Then it's much easier to interact and discuss with your customer and explain how your processes and how your product are working and what kind of values they give to your customer, bring to your customer, and so on. So visuality gives you better opportunities for interaction. And when I'm thinking about the interaction, I'm not thinking only about meetings. I'm thinking the whole process from lead generation to contacting, then to the meetings. What happens between meetings? You send some sponsor letters, maybe you create proposals, and then you try to get signed contract to you. So in all of those steps during the sales process, there is an interaction. And the more visual materials you are using in that interaction, the more you will sell, because of your customer can understand your message more easily. Now it's Joona, your time to tell how to do that visual materials.
All right, thanks for the intro. Yeah, I have a few tips and tricks, like I mentioned, that I've learned during the projects that I've done together with the customers, together with our designers, and I'm breaking it down into different topics. And I would like to start with one of the biggest parts about any brand, which is not really thought of. Typically, it's sort of happening on the background, much like many of the components of a brand. But one of the important bits is the colors of the presentations. And they are, of course, stated typically in your graphical guidelines what the color should be, and necessarily you don't have much power over deciding what the colors will be, but anyone of you creating materials will have a lot of power in choosing how you're gonna use the colors in the materials. Typically, the company colors are divided into few groups. You have the primary colors. In some cases, it can be only one primary color, and typically black and white are considered primary colors as well. In our brand, the different shades of purple are the primary colors. They are typically the colors that should be used the most. And in our case, like you see on the backgrounds that I will show you, I have used the lighter version of the purple in many cases because it's not white, so it gives some brand resemblance, but it's not too strong either. I could use the darker shades, but typically the darker the shade, the more stronger the color is, and the less it can be used, so it doesn't feel stuffy and overwhelming. Then you have the accent colors, which are typically bright colors, pops of colors that you can use in contrast and sometimes alone in the presentations. But I would always avoid using too big amounts on a one slide or in a bigger picture on the whole presentation. Using them sparsely is typically much better than just using them too much. In our case, we have the different shades of oranges, or it's almost pinkish color when it's dyed down, and that can be used in fonts like we've used on this slide, for example, and on many slides to highlight the important stuff that we try to focus the eye on. And then quite often you have the different other category or the combination colors that you can use more, I would say, functionally. So you might have the logos in these colors. Typically the text is in one of these colors, and they are sort of the basic colors of any brand. In these, I would typically choose not the pitch black color, because that's a strong color as well. I would break it down a bit to a bit more gray. Very dark gray is typically much better in different use cases than the 100% black color, because it can be quite overwhelming if you use it in large amounts. It's quite good in fonts, but it can make it a bit more lighter if you have just a small amount of dark gray in the darker fonts. A few things to keep in mind when you're designing your presentations and choosing how to use the colors of your brand. One thing that is has always been important, but especially now with all the regulation and instructions on creating accessible materials, is that there should always be the thought of creating the materials to be accessible. So instead of having, like on the icon, very vague gray text, which might not be a problem for you, it might not be a problem on a big screen that you might be creating the material with, but it might be a problem if the eyesight on the recipient is maybe a bit poorer, or the device they're viewing is the screen size is smaller, or they're using some other device that might make it harder to read. And it's especially important when you're using images as background, placing text on top of the image, that you have enough color contrast in the text and the image. There are better images and there are worse images for what comes to using them as a background. Of course, if you're using massive text, it doesn't matter that much. But if the text is small, then you need to make sure that the contrast is sufficient. Then balance is quite important in designing the slides. So when you're creating the material, keep in mind what I mentioned about the primary colors. They should be typically used more. Avoid using too heavy colors so it doesn't get too stuffy. And don't use the accent colors into high concentrations because it can have the same effect. It's typically better to be a bit more conservative with the use of colors. But if you really know what you're doing, then you can experience a bit more. And I would always, of course, avoid using colors that are not part of your brand because they can be then good, or in most cases, they will not be good fit for the rest of the brand. And of course, they're not then representing your brand in a bigger picture. Then the last thing is that how well they work together. So especially with the texts, I wouldn't go too light on the color. So if you have somewhere middle ranges of gray, somewhere between white and black, it might be difficult text both in light background and on dark background. So I would have rather bit more distance between the different texts rather than having sort of midway in the settings. And then a bit more about the use of text. So how should you use text? I guess many of you are aware how the different headers are categorized, and then you have different body text size. And in most cases, I would try to use, of course, as big text as possible when creating the presentations. I would rather compact the text rather than just typing everything and making the font smaller. It works both for the look of the presentation, but also presentation is meant to be presented. It's not a document that somebody reads in most cases. So having small amount of text on a larger font is typically a better solution. Of course, in most cases, your brand guidelines dictate what fonts you will use. But if you have any say in what fonts the company should use, I would avoid, again, too complicated fonts that are a bit harder to read. I would go with clear lines, but of course that's part of the brand identity, and it's down to the taste. On this slide, you can see a few examples of text on a lighter background and on a darker background. Always, typically, it is easier, regardless of the device, but especially if the resolution is not the best, as it might be now in the screen share, to use lighter background and darker text rather than the darker background and white text in this case. It always makes it a bit more easier to read and easy on the eye. Again, maybe the right side could be like a dark gray rather than full black. It might make it a bit more easier to read, but I would opt for the left example if possible. Also, one thing to note about where you align the text. On the left side, you have the text aligned to the left, which is typically much better solution in Western countries where we read from left to right, that we align the text to the left side. It's been studied that the text is harder to read when it's aligned to the right side, like on the right side of the slide. and somewhere in the center. So if you center align the text, it's a bit easier to read than on the right side, but still it's not as easy to read as if it would be on the left side. So whenever you have long strings of text, try to align it to the left side as much as possible. Paulus, by the way, do you have any comments on the few topics, the colors and the text? Or should
I
jump
think
to
that you covered the most important ones, but of course, if you are not a designer, you are not making typically decisions what kind of fonts you are using in presentations, what kind of colors you should use there. But of course, every one of us can influence those topics. So if your designer has made bad decisions, there is also that this is also possible. Then try to influence to the situation that could we add some effect colors or change this from black to dark gray or something like that. Make proposals for them, and it's possible every time to change things. But of course, it's also important to follow brand guidelines and not breaking them all the time. It's better to change that guideline than breaking it. It's my one opinion to this topic also.
Yeah, good points. Then we could move to the images. Images is very broad topic which could be discussed for much more in depth than what we're gonna do now. But few tips and tricks on using images as background. Of course, you can use images on the slide like many people typically use. So you have maybe product images or something like that. But when you want to create maybe a more modern look for your presentation, background images and nowadays videos as well are a good tool for that. Few things I would always keep in mind when choosing the background images you want to use. One is that most images that are, in most cases clients have, are maybe not the best for presentations. They might be good images, don't get me wrong, but they're not good for presentations because they are more what I call documentative images. So they are meant to showcase a product or something like that, but it doesn't have enough space for presentation use, so text.
So it's all about the layout of the image quite a lot, and how much information is included in that photo.
Yeah, and here we have few example images that we could use. They might not be the best images in the world to be used as background, but they could be used. So we have the lady swimming in the cold water. It is a decent image because it has a lot of the water element there, and it's one contrast. It's easy to write content on top of the water. It might not be the brand color you're looking for, but I've seen companies coloring pieces of ready-made pictures from image banks. So you might change the beanie color to fit your brand if you really want to tune it, or you could expand even the water area to have the lady in a smaller piece in the picture. So those are options that you can do with Photoshop, for example. And the same goes for the second image. So the man standing back to the wall is a decent image, but again, maybe this is an image I would expand a bit with Photoshop to have more of the wall visible. So I could fit more text, or I could just crop it in the presentation creation. But either way, it's not ideal because the man is taking so much space. Then the next image with the lady and the pink wall, that's a decent picture, but the problem might come from the position where the lady is in. So I would rather use either one of the sides. If I have some object, it can be a human, like in these three examples. But in other cases, it could be a product or something. So I would have that on either side of the picture, so left or right, and then you can use the remaining space for the content. And the reason left or right is because the presentations typically are portraits, so they're 16:9 frame ratio, so that is just better. Then if I jump over the video for a minute, the yellow background might be good if your color scheme is yellow, so I don't see any problem with that. It could be used quite broadly in different use cases. Then the video which we jumped over could be used on a background, but again, it has a lot of contrast. It has lighter parts and darker parts, and they are also changing. So we would need to do something about it, and I will show you an example what you could do. And then to cover the bottom row in one go, those are decent images. Maybe I would add a bit of or remove bit of contrast from at least the 3 or 4 on the right side. Actually, there's one image, so double. But anyways, to make it again a bit more easier to read stuff on top of it. But what I would do for the top images would be to add a tint or a hue on top, so it would make them a bit easier on the eye and not catch so much attention, rather than having no hue at all. And Paulus, if you have any additions, please feel free to say them.
No, I don't have at the moment anything special.
Yeah. I've listed few sources that we use on the bottom of the slide. So we use paid services like Shutterstock, and then there are free image banks like Pexels and Unsplash. There are pros and cons with each, so feel free to check them out. Then it's not related really to images, but we use in some cases Flat Icon, which is icon bank. And then you can find video banks like Storyblocks or Envato Elements, or a lot of, just by Googling, you will find a lot of good material. You may need to spend 20 euros, 40 euros, something like that a month to have access to unlimited amount of content, but it's typically worthwhile to elevate the images that you might be using. Or if you're in a fortunate enough situation that you can purchase a photographer to come and shoot pictures for you, try to instruct them not to only take good pictures to your website or whichever use case you might have, but also to take pictures thinking the design layout of the slide. So having enough of this so-called dead space in the picture is typically a good thing in a picture that you use in a background. So you might need to teach them a bit about the presentations that you have, but it's typically worthwhile. Then we discussed earlier about accessibility, and one more example that I would like to show is that this kind of background image is fine, it's good. It doesn't draw too much attention to it. But if we don't do anything to it, it's pretty hard to read both of these texts. They are large enough font that you can most likely read them quite easily. But if you think that they would be smaller ones, then it would become harder. So I would always, in these kind of cases, if I really want to use this picture, I would add some sort of contrast layer on top. So change it quite dramatically to make it easier to read. Then moving on to slide layouts. Slide layouts can be designed in thousands of different ways. Few typical options you have already seen in this is that we quite often use image on the left or on the right side and then the content on the other one. The beauty is that it's quite easy. It's quite easy for anyone, regardless of the graphical skill set, to use those slides. But of course, you can design them in any way. And I would use some sort of geometric shapes and maybe some very low-level math to split the slide into different pieces. So you might use one part image and then 2-part text, or other way around, or then you might have 3/4 of content on the top and then some image on the back, on the bottom, or something like that. And I would also, not to make the presentation boring, use only one slide layout. So I would switch it around. Maybe every other slide you would have something different. Image on the left side, image on the right side, text on the bottom left corner, or whatever it is, to use different kind of elements. And I'll show you an example next. Paulus, do you have any comments on this?
Of course, this slide is a good example. And how this slide is built is that it's divided in 2 parts. Left side is the image and photo, and then the right side is all about the visualization of those options. And then you have it's nearly in the middle of the slide. There is some kind of line for the hand and those squares are nearly in square mode, and they are building together a bigger square. So this slide I think is quite good example how to divide it to different parts, and how to follow some kind of invisible lines inside the presentation, which makes it visually easier to read and more harmonious, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
Even this is not any kind of magic, but if you think what kind of other options there are, this kind of slide could be really horrible.
Yeah, and I will show you an example, small example, how small layout changes may make the slide much better or much worse. But I will show you an example of different kind of layouts in one of our templates that we offer for any Seidat user. So if you're using relatively new workspace, you may have these already there. If you don't have these new templates, you can request them in our chat and we will add them to your workspace. But anyways, here's a snapshot of one of those templates that we offer. And you can see that it has a lot of different layouts. The general idea is the same. We use the same colors, we use the same shapes. So some of them have the rounded corners and all that. And quite often in this presentation, the amount of context, the text typically, matters in how the slide has been designed. But the idea is not that everyone will be creating individual templates and slide layouts every time they create a presentation, but it's that you and your team will create it once and then you can reuse it. Quite often a company might need, let's say, 5 to 10 different slide layouts, and then those can be reused and reused forever. Yeah, so this is the example, just to have the right side a bit bigger. Then a quick look into small changes in how the layout has been created, that the alignment might make the material just a bit better. You might not even see it in a bigger presentation that the layout is not ideal, but when you reorganize them a bit, it might make it just a small amount of quality improvement in that. So the difference between here is that here the header and the subheader on top of it are way too close to the edge, in my opinion. They're not touching the edge, but they're not that far off. So I would always try to have some space on the sort of like margins. And here we have the header combo, so the two rows of text. They are as far from the left side as they are from the top, so that's by design. And then the icons on the bottom are placed equally here on this example, whereas in here they are sort of horizontally. Vertically they are okay, but horizontally they're not on the equally spaced. So that is just a small thing that you can change. And I have to promote Seidat for this, that it's quite easy to align elements with each other. It works very well that you can just align the stuff and you will see the lines and everything when you're doing it, or you can use the right side editor settings where you can change the sizing and the location of the element with 0.1 pixel accuracy. And then a few examples in a bigger picture, different unity in the design. Here is an example of our presentation. It has quite varying amount of different images and different layouts, but still it is recognizable as one presentation. It has the colors, it has the fonts, it has the idea that we use as images. And then another example is an older template that we have had, same stuff, different kind of images, but they have more unified color. So they're like pink, purple color in all of them. And then other elements bring it together. I have
One thing
please.
what I could add to these topics is that, or underline, is whenever you are using images, don't think it that way that image is must. Joona was explaining about background images and so on. But I think that it's more important also to think about how this image could support my message, what I'm telling. So if they are not connecting the message, what you tell, and what kind of images you are using, then it's not giving any extra. But for example, on that slide, I'm thinking that Joona is offering to you something, and that's why this hand is also, it's part of the story. We offer you this kind of opportunities to use different kind of layouts. So there is not very strong connection, but some level of mental connection anyway. So I think this is very important, that don't use only images, but images which are supporting your message on some level.
Yeah, that's a good point. And of course, if you have your own photographer, then it's much easier if you have from your environment. One thing that I could add to that is that is one approach, that you can use images that tell a message, or you can just use images of nature if you think that is something that helps you tell a message. It's not related maybe to your product, but it might be related to your values or something like that. But yeah, good points.
I can continue about this
we would run out of time though.
Storytelling shortly. For example, in this kind of slide, there is a boat which is running this kind of circle way. But if you think about what Joona will tell about, it's about designing the slide, and it's kind of rotating process where you try and error and try again and try again. It's always that kind of process. You will never succeed in your first trial. It's my opinion. I'm not able to do that, at least.
Yeah. I will quickly introduce a few examples of how to create quite a simple slide, one cover slide and one content slide, and few iterations of it. So we will start with the cover slide. This might be a really simple cover that you would toss into your presentation. It has your logo, so people recognize it's yours. It has the color, but that's it. It's not doing much, but it does the basics. So you could live with that. But maybe if we go a step further, we would add something that tells the story. Again, what we discussed just before. This might tell a story of, say, that's background. So where we have background in Finnish Lapland, we might add a picture of the Northern Lights if you would want that, and it might be a bit better than just a purple background. But if we go a bit further in that, is that we are essentially creating and selling presentation solutions, so we might also state that, so people know when they see our materials. And we might add a picture where somebody's presenting something. Okay, it might not be perfect picture because it's on a blackboard or whiteboard, I mean, but anyways, it's telling a bit more of the story. Or we might take it one step further and add a picture that is more specific to what situations our customers are using the material in. And then we could add a promise that we are trying to make every customer's meeting a success. Or we might add some other content to it that tells that this is this meeting, and then when we share it, it's easier to remember. So I think all of these are options. You may have opinions on which is the best, but I think these are different approaches. And in my point of view, the further we went in this, the better the cover slide got. Very simple stuff, but again, simple is typically quite good solution. Then about the content slide, we quite often see this kind of slides from some of the clients that may use PowerPoint. They might have some very basic templates there. They do the work. You can write stuff to it and present them, but they're in some cases very boring to look at and not really nice to sort of soak the information in. You might start to read, and this is quite a small amount of text. I've seen much worse, but anyways, it does its job, but it doesn't do much else than that. Then we may add a picture, again telling a bit about the story. Somebody's creating a presentation there, and you might change the text a bit, that this is what we do, say that this is experienced and that and all that. Or you may even start to add icons, piece the content into different categories. Typically the rule of 3 is quite good when creating presentations, that you typically don't want to add more than 3 main things on a slide. All of these had 3 things, but here they are easily distinguishable as different stuff. We added the icon, which may help someone if they're not bothered in reading when they're presented this slide, that these are the main things that Seidat is offering you. Again, taste questions, which one do you think is the best one? And they're not overruling each other. They can be used interchangeably, but again, in my point of view, splitting the content into different pieces, maybe even adding animations to this, so each of these circles would come one by one, so you could even pace the discussion a bit better. Here you can see a snapshot of the previously mentioned templates that we have, and when you're shared this material, you can open them and browse them more in depth if you want to. And again, if you don't have these templates in your workshop, you can just ask. But anyways, these are a few examples of different kind of approaches to the presentation creation. They have similar elements within each other, but they have distinguishable color schemes, use of fonts, use of different kind of shapes. So you might use rounded shapes in one of them, and then rectangular ones in the other one. And different kind of images have been selected to tie it all together. And I will show you, before I will give Paulus some time to continue, I will show you a few real-life examples that our clients have in their presentations. And I will give you a few already mentioned tips and tricks, but from the actual content of a client. So the first example is Kontio. It's a Finnish log house or log villa builder or constructor. I don't know what's the correct word, but anyways, they build and construct log house villas and houses and everything like that. And they have used their brand colors quite consistently, so they have quite muted colors in their brand. The muted colors work in their use case because oops, I'm not waiting enough to activate. So the muted colors are working well together, so they can use quite a lot of all of these colors because they're not fighting with each other. Of course, one thing that makes this presentation really good is that they have really good images from different kind of sites, and also they have tried to reduce the text amount to a minimum. Some slides, of course, need a lot of text. This has relatively large amount of text, but then there are slides that have much less. So it's easier to think of the topic and discuss about it and all that, not filling the whole of the presentation with just plain text. Then moving on to MSK Group, they manufacture harvesters and tractors and all that sort of stuff, also in Finland, and they also use images quite broadly. They have good images, and they use them quite frequently. I don't know if they use some image bank images every now and then. They also have much brighter colors, and as you can see, it's very pungent, the color on some of the slides that they have used more of it. But on most slides, the amount of this lime green is used quite conservatively because it's a very strong color. They have more darker look to the presentation, and some of the images that they want to use need a tint on top, so they are possible to be used, and some text can be read from top of it. And then the last example is Kopar, industrial manufacturer in Finland as well, or international. Sorry, Need to activate the frame. So again, same kind of stuff here. I would point out that they use different kind of shapes that really tie together. Some rounded edges, but one of them is square edge or rectangular edge. Icons, again, quite a lot of text has been compacted into a few words, and it requires someone to be presenting it. So these kind of slides won't really work alone, so they need the presenter there. But once the presenter is there and explaining all this, it works as a presentation much better. I think that's the tips and tricks that I have. Let's start to summarize, and then I'll give Paulus the final stage. So
Thank you, Joona, about those ideas, what you have shared based on your experience. If you think about the summary, what we have learned, I would say that the most important thing is that you will sell more when you use those visual tricks, because the quality of the slides are better. Your customers can more easily understand what you are explaining in your meetings when you share the material for them, and that's why if they understand better what you try to tell them, it's easier to buy. And also this kind of Joona, if you want to continue with this topic more detailed, but maybe not.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I thought you were continuing. Yeah, I would like to summarize that you don't need to be a graphic designer. I went quite deep in like how to use colors and blah blah blah. You don't need to be a graphic designer. One thing that we use quite often is different templates. Everyone from Seidat can create material that looks like Seidat's material, even though, not to offend any of our employees, but not everyone is a great designer. Some of the slides may look a bit odd, then we might fix them, but they have the broad elements because we use the templates, and we have created the templates to be as easy as possible to be used.
Yeah.
But bringing those pictures, colors, fonts will also already do half of the work.
Yeah. So I think this is really important. It's important to learn those tricks, but it doesn't mean that you must be like a designer. But if I shortly summarize also that way, that if you really want to develop your materials, it's not only your responsibility. You can contact your teammates or contact us. We have quite a lot of experience. We do it daily. So if you want to develop better materials, call us, send us message in chat or whatever, then we can start discussing how to do that. If you think about what is Seidat all about, our mission is to enable winning sales flows. And this kind of material development is one part of that, but in the base of our business is Seidat presentation platform or sales enablement platform, which we have used, of course, all the time in this webinar. So this presentation is created by Seidat. We have used this Seidat to present that. We will share the material for you after this webinar with Seidat. Then we can analyze if you open it, how you use it, and if you want, then we can develop the material to be better. In sales also, digital signature is one important topic, and we have also features for that. In Seidat presentations, the idea is that it's cloud-based, everything is in one place. So whenever you use material, it's easy to find, and you can use them with any device. We have one big specialty, which is the presentation structure, you can use this kind of matrix structure, and together with this kind of presenter view, I'm sorry this is in Finnish, but you maybe the visual video tells you the story. So you can navigate in a presentation the way you are having a discussion with your customer. So it's not only linear like railway, which you must follow, but this kind of matrix structure together with presenter view gives you many new opportunities. If we want, when we share material for you, we can put notifications on, and then we will get notified every time when you open the presentation. And in sales, this kind of notifications are really important, especially when you have a longer sales cycles. And one important topic in Seidat is, of course, that we have many integrations. So it means that you can automate many processes and avoid manual work. So, for example, proposal creation is one good example that you can get the data from CRM, from Salesforce, Dynamics, Pipedrive, or whichever, and that data can be automatically pushed to your presentations. Then you can use analytics tools, many kind of Google Analytics, for example, to analyze how your customers are behaving with your presentations. You can share those materials in social media and so on. So there is many opportunities with Seidat, and of course one important thing is to keep everything aligned, following your brand guidelines. We have many good features to support that, and keeping the materials all the time up to date. Smart slides are done for that. So whenever you update your last quarter results, for example, to one slide, they are updated to every presentation where that slide is used. So it saves huge amount of time, and reason why our customers are using Seidat is, of course, that they want to get better sales results and save time. We are gonna have next webinar about driving your business forward, and there is more webinars on our website. And if you think what's coming next, I once again ask you to follow our social media channels. There we tell about the coming new events. And yes, if you want to start using Seidat, please go to our website, press sign up button. It's free to test. There is 14 days trial period, and for single users it's free. So you can easily test our tool and see how it can help your business. And please contact us if you have any questions. The chat is very quick way to connect us. Typically the response time is less than 1 minute. Thank you. I haven't seen any questions. If you still have something, you can ask us, but if not, I wish you really nice summertime. At least in Finland, it's really nice weather, plus 25 degrees about, and sun is shining. So please enjoy the summer.
Let's go enjoy that.
Yes, let's go enjoy that. And then I really recommend to develop the quality of your presentation and use that trick to get better sales results. See you.
Thank you, guys.
Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.